So, you just got called for an instructional design interview. You're excited and you're nervous and you're a little bit of everything in between. Well, don't worry. In this video, I'm going to share with you my top interviewing tips from my time working as an instructional design and e-learning development leader and hiring manager. Stick around. Hey there folks, Tim Slade here from the eLearning Designers Academy. I'll be completely honest with you. Early in my career, I used to be such a nervous wreck when it came to interviewing for new jobs. I would literally spend hours and hours trying to predict every single question I might get asked. And then I'd try to script out word for word every single thing that I wanted to say. And then, when it finally came time for the interview, the second I got asked a question that I didn't, plan for, it would totally throw me off and I'd just start rambling like a fool. At least that's how it felt, in the moment. And then, afterwards, the whole experience felt like a total blur, as if I had, just blacked out for the last hour. Now, if that at all sounds like what you've experienced participating in an interview, I want you to know that you're not alone. Interviewing for a job, especially when it's one that you really want or desperately need, is a nerve-wracking, overwhelming, high-pressure experience. And it's so easy to let our nerves get the better of us, or your nerves get the better of you. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't have any magical combination of words that will help you instantly calm your nerves. However, I can give you some tips from my experience working as someone who used to manage an instructional design team at a large technology company and interviewed and hired countless folks over the years that hopefully will help you feel more prepared and informed going into your next interview. And I don't know about you, but being prepared and informed is often the thing that helps me calm my nerves and find my confidence. So let's get to it. All right, so the first tip or bit of knowledge that I want you to know and I want to share with you is that every instructional design interview is different. One of my pet peeves about a lot of the advice and noise that gets thrown around the internet nowadays about working in instructional design or e-learning development or learning and development in general is that, everything that we do fits into this nice little box with clear parameters, and that the questions you're going to get asked during the interview and what the process is going to look like is totally standardized across the board. And that is total bullshit. I mean, for context, most leaders and hiring managers, not just in our industry, but throughout the private sector in general, receive little or no training on or preparation on how even to conduct an interview or what questions to ask. I mean, many of them are just literally making it up as they go, and they're asking the questions that seem important to them. And, that's important to know because every interview is going to be different. Every hiring manager is looking for different qualities in a candidate, regardless of what they might put in the job description. And you're going to get asked different questions depending on who's interviewing you. The recruiter is going to ask different questions than the hiring manager, and the hiring manager is going to ask different questions than the team, and, so forth and so on. And so, it's for those reasons why you need to know that there's no surefire way to be 100% prepared for an interview and what questions you might get asked. However, it's so important to have a general sense of what the instructional design interview process typically looks like, who's typically involved, and what you can typically expect each step of the way. And of course, I have a whole bunch of links down in the description on my list of the top instructional design interview questions you're likely to get asked, how to respond with the STAR method, and an overview of the instructional design interview process, and much more. So check those out down below. All right, this brings me to my second tip and bit of wisdom on instructional design interviews, and it's that authenticity and honesty will win you the day. Here's what I want you to know. Going into an interview as an edited version of yourself, trying to convince a hiring manager that you have skills or experience or knowledge that you don't really have, is a total recipe for failure. Not only can most hiring managers see right through the BS, but the bigger risk is what happens if you do manage to pull the wool over their eyes. What happens if they hire that person that you created for the interview? What happens then? I mean, does that mean you have to now show up to work every day pretending and maintaining the facade of that person you created? I mean, you want to talk about, setting yourself up for a heavy dose of imposter syndrome? Well, that's how you would do that. And so what you need to remember is that, if the role is right for you and your skills and experience are right for the role, then you being you is more than good enough. You're not going to be the right fit for every role, and every role isn't going to be the right fit for you. And you need to get comfortable with that. At the end of the day, hiring managers want to hire and work with a real, authentic person. So be that, and you'll eventually find that you'll be more than successful being you rather than, someone else. And finally, along those lines, part of being an authentic person during an interview is a willingness to admit that you don't know it all. A lot of times hiring managers ask questions that they don't expect you to know the answer to, but rather to see if you're willing to and you're capable of demonstrating some self-awareness and have some room to grow. And so it's totally fine to say, I don't know, during the interview. It just comes down to how you say it. And of course, I have a whole separate video on how to do just that down in the description. All right. So this brings me to my third and final tip in this video. And this one is such an easy one, and it's one that can make a huge difference and can make or break your chances of moving on to the next stages of an interview, regardless of how much experience you have or how well you answer any questions they might ask you. And that's to ask a ton of questions. Let me tell you, if there was one single red flag or pet peeve I had as a hiring manager, it was when a candidate didn't have a ton of questions for me about the role or the team and the work that they'd be doing in general. Asking a lot of really good, thoughtful, and curious questions during an interview is so important for a bunch of different reasons. I mean, for starters, from a candidate's perspective, an interview should be a two-way process. Yeah, the hiring manager is interviewing you to evaluate how your skills and experience might fit within the role, but also it's an opportunity for you to interview the hiring manager and make sure it's a person you'd want to work with and a team that you would actually want to work on. And beyond that, asking questions also helps you demonstrate that you have an actual interest in the job and the work that you'd be doing on a day-to-day basis. And finally, asking questions is just a phenomenal way to transform the interview experience from a one-way interrogation to a two-way conversation. And I mean, we all know that the best interviews are the ones that just felt like a good conversation. And the best way to do that is to ask questions. So, for example, let's say you get asked about your instructional design process. After you give your answer, a great follow-up question is to ask the hiring manager about their team's instructional design process. It's really that simple, and it'll help you evaluate how your skills and experience aligns with the current state of the team you might be working on in the future. Trust me, the vast majority of candidates don't ask any questions, at least not good ones. And so if you're looking for an instant way to stand out from the crowd and be remembered as a candidate, asking a boatload of questions is going to do it. All right. So those are my tips for better instructional design interviews. It's, all pretty simple stuff, mostly common sense. So don't try to overcomplicate it with a bunch of hacks and cheap tricks and bad advice that gets thrown around out there online. All right. All right. So I want to know, what other tips, advice, or questions do you have about instructional design interviews? Share them by commenting down below. And while you're there, make sure to check out all the links down in the description for my all of my resources for interviewing for instructional design and e-learning development jobs. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, make sure to click those like, subscribe, and bell buttons to get alerted the next time I publish a video just like this one. And of course, join us inside the eLearning Designers Academy, where we help new instructional designers and e-learning developers grow their careers by focusing on skills first. Otherwise, my name is Tim Slade, and until next time, I'll see you around.